Welcome to the Vision Perfect video trainer for PurseSetup and side games, including skins games. You can create a prize structure for any event set up in Viper. If you open the score entry screen by clicking on the scores icon, you will see a PurseSetup button. The PurseSetup enables any kind of payoff to be built for an event, whether paying gross places, net places, or both gross and net places. When you're setting up a both gross and net prize structure, by default, Viper will do elimination, meaning that if you win a prize on the gross side, for example, you will be eliminated from winning on the net side. This is the most common way to set up both gross and net payoffs. There are events, however, where players have the option to buy into a prize structure, when buying into both gross and net, they could potentially win on both sides. So there is a no elimination checkbox for this kind of setup, and when checked, prizes will be awarded on both gross and net sides based on scores, with no elimination occurring. When this method of payoff is set up, there are checkboxes in the player grid to identify which players are participating in both the gross and net purses. Viper will also support multiple flight payoffs. When there are multiple flights, you have the option to pay all flights equally, meaning that each flight setup would be the same, or you can pay flights individually, and when you select to pay flights individually, each flight can be set up independently. Each flight could then have its own payoff amount and any place payoffs for both gross or net and net, independent of all the other flight payoffs. When you do set up a multi-flight purse, you also have the option to pay an overall gross winner or an overall net winner, meaning that a overall winner across all flights would be selected for that purse amount if it is set up. To set up a purse, you would first set the purse amount to be used. If you were paying multiple flights, you could then set the percent of the total purse to be used for each flight that you were setting up. In this case, we're just doing a single flight, or actually a non-flighted event, which is equivalent to a single flight. And when you enter payoff amounts, you can either enter a dollar value or a percent, and whichever you use, the other side will automatically calculate. When setting up a purse, you can set up the gross and net payoffs independently. And when you have completed the setup and you have scored the event, then you are ready to print your payoff reports. So from the reports screen, there are a number of payoff reports that can be selected. Viper also has the ability to create side games from main event scores when either team or individual hole-by-hole scoring is used. Pressing the Games icon will open the sub-event setup screen. When scoring players individually, you can create any kind of a sub-event that will use the main event individual scores. For example, the main event may be a Pro-Am team event using the best 2 gross and 1 best net ball per hole for the team score. From this event with individual hole scores for all players, you could then create sub-events for a pros only individual gross event or an amateurs only net event, team or individual. When there are individual hole-by-hole scores, you can also create different teams for a sub-event using the sub-event team number column to enter any team configuration that you want. For each sub-event, you'll have all the same score options that are available for a main event. The hole selectors provide additional options for things like a par 3 hole only scores event, or a game using holes 7 through 12, or whatever kind of game you want to create using different holes. Clicking on any column header will sort the field by that column. Using the sort options will help with selecting players that are to be included in a sub-event. Right mouse clicking on the sub-event column will provide options to renumber the teams, such as renumbering all of the teams to a single player team size. You can also just click on the team number and manually change the team numbers to anything that you want to create any kind of a team configuration that you want. The in sub-event checkboxes are used to include or exclude players from each sub-event that's created. And clicking on a row will highlight a row. Holding down the control key will highlight additional rows. Or clicking on the first row in a range and then holding down the shift key and clicking on the last row in a range will highlight a range of players. And using the highlight rows options, you can right click on the in sub-event column and use the tools to select only the highlighted players or unselect the highlighted players to help you narrow the field for the sub-event for whatever reason there may be to include or exclude players in a particular sub-event that you're creating. Each sub-event, excluding skins games, can also have their own handicap adjustment, and so you have full handicap adjustment capabilities for each sub-event that's created, whether team or individual. And for each sub-event that's created, you can set up any kind of a purse payoff structure for that sub-event. Each event that's created has its own scores report and payoff report if a purse has been set up for that event. When multiple events exist, then the next and previous buttons appear to enable you to scroll through all of the sub-events that have been created. If the event is a multi-round event, then the round selectors enable you to set up sub-events that are for one or more rounds, meaning that it will total the scores for multiple rounds if multiple rounds are selected. For each event that's created, you can give the event a name. And to create a skins game, you just check the yes box for that it is a skins game and select whether it's a gross or net skins game. And if it's team hole by hole scoring, then you need to check the box to say that it's a team skins. And like all sub-events, the skins game has its own purse setup. So you have the option when setting up a skins purse to just enter a total amount for a purse or to go in and enter a individual contribution amount, and it will then calculate the total purse based on the number of players participating in the skins game. When you have a skins game purse set up, you can select to use carryover, and when carryover is checked, then the purse amount will be divided by the number of holes in the skins game, and if a hole is not one, it will carry over to the next hole and so on. Once the purse is set up, the skins report will generate the results of the skin winners. So the sub-event screen will enable the setup of as many sub-events as you want from the main event, and will enable all reports to be generated for the sub-events from this single screen. So whatever event is currently selected, that's which the reports that will be generated. So this enables many sub-events to be managed from this single game screen. This concludes the video trainer for PurseSetup and side games. For any questions or technical support, call 888-643-1306. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Thanks.